Emily Jane, thanks for hopping on today. Happy December to you. How are you today?
I am excited for this conversation, Jack.
Happy days. It's that high spirits time of the year, so I'm happy to dive straight into it. This is all about you, and our audience is learning as much about you as possible. So let's
Mm,
start from the top. Please introduce yourself, a title that you like to go by, and what it
mm.
is exactly that you do.
Amazing. Well, my name's Emily Jane Sarroff, otherwise known as Empower with M, but you guys can all just call me M. And I am a branding strategist. That is really what I am known for. And as you know, we step into 2025, which is going to be my 5th year in business, which is super exciting. That is the area that I'm really niching even deeper down into, because over the last 4 years of my business journey, one thing's been for sure, and that's that branding and creativity are my superpowers. And so 2025 is the year that I'm going to amplify that even further.
Awesome, awesome. That's literally how I stumbled across your journey and your page, and from my side. So it's really cool to see that niche growing, and it's obviously hitting the right algorithms, or at least hopefully the right ones from your side if you're connecting with me. So tell me a bit about what inspired you to start down this path 4 or 5 years ago, and get involved in that branding creative space.
Yeah, so my 4th year birthday in business is literally 2 days away, which is pretty exciting. So, I mean, if you're listening to this later, it's on the 22nd of December. But 4 years ago, I was 22 years old. I was studying my Masters of Architecture, and I was working in a architecture job, which was honestly draining the life out of me. It was the only path that I had really known for myself since coming out of school. Like, I had my eyes set on climbing that corporate ladder, like getting the degrees and really building a career in the architecture space. But I started to realize that the industry wasn't as much creative as it is actually just technical and fitting into a bunch of binders that are standard after standard after standard of what's required within the construction industry. So the deeper that I moved towards finishing my degree, I was 6 months away from getting my master's. The more and more this emotional turmoil was growing within me. I was crying myself to sleep every night. In fact, I wasn't really sleeping most nights because I was up until 5 a.m. studying, if I even got sleep after that. And so it was really this hamster wheel that I was stuck in that was just making me feel more and more unfulfilled, and also further and further and further away from who I really was at my core. And so at that point in time, I had started to dive into my personal development journey, which then led me to starting my podcast, the Empower with M podcast. And that was really the first proper brand I started to build. And as I started to build that alongside my studies, I began to realize that I was investing more of my time and energy into this passion project than I was into my degree. And that for me was really an indication that I was being pulled in a different direction. So at 22, I made the decision to drop out of my master's degree, quit my job in the architecture industry, and just go all in on building my brand. And within just 8 months of doing all of that, I had hit my first 6 figures in my business, which for me was the confirmation that I needed to know that that was what I was meant to be doing. And, now we fast forward 4 years from there, and I've been helping other business owners build brands of their own, and now starting to transition into the space of building my own branding agency.
So crazy. So similar. And I studied property and ended up in a similar line. So really impressed by you taking the leap. And it's going to be a stupid question, but any regrets taking the leap?
Not at all. And it's really interesting, right? Because like a lot of people would always say to me, oh, I was so young when I made that decision. And like how great that I got that clarity so soon. But even, for myself at that point, like I had felt like I had waited too long before actually taking that leap. But there's definitely no regrets that I've had. I feel like the last 4 years, I'm still not quite where I thought I would be by this point, but I really trust that, the journey unfolds just as it's meant to. And everything is happening in perfect timing. And there's not really anything I would change about the journey that I have been on.
So good. And I share the same thing with all of my clients. Like sometimes you just have to go with the flow. Like you might not have found your ideal hobby or passion or the whole complexities of it, but it will mold itself. Like just go with the journey. So love that. Challenges. What was probably the hardest part? Maybe even just that initial period jumping over, I assume, loss of revenue, loss of income, all of those sorts of things. What really hit home the most for you making that leap?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many challenges that have come up at different points in the journey, but I really think the core of any of the challenges that I have experienced comes back to self-trust and where I've kind of like lacked self-trust due to certain things. And so particularly at that first point in the journey, I didn't act on it as quickly as I probably could have because of that fear, around, can I trust myself? If I do take this step, if I do lean in, if I do become, solely responsible for having to create an income through myself instead of, relying on a paycheck from someone else. And it really is self-trust that's at the core of it. And I'm grateful that I did have a lot of self-trust in myself at that point in my journey. But for anyone who is listening and is going through like any kind of pivotal moment in their life or in their business, like always lean back into self-trust, because that really is going to be the thing that helps you move forward at a much quicker pace.
So good. And it's that whole burn the boats concept. Like if you just put it all in on yourself and don't rely on others around you, spoon feeding, whatever kind of, metaphor you want to put in there, it really can empower you. I mean, leaning into where your podcast went down and everything else. So
massively.
I love that. And, I mean, you've already highlighted a few points of difference as to why you are who you are. But what would be maybe your defining factor or, your differentiation point from the other brand coaches and brand strategists out there in the space at the moment?
Yeah, I love this. And it's interesting because I've been doing a lot of work around this myself recently, because I think we know ourselves so well. And then because we know ourselves so well, we forget that everyone else doesn't know us to the depth that we know ourselves. And especially when it comes to building a brand on social media, like you're seeing yourself in your day to day, but no one else is unless you're showing it online. And my differentiating factor is really my creativity, in the sense that I am an artist, like behind the scenes. It's always been something that's just my natural gift. Like I don't practice art, I just know how to do it. It's just one of those things that is like, I believe it's like one of my spiritual gifts. And that for me as a branding strategist is my biggest point of difference, because no one else has that creative mind to be able to view the world or to be able to view brands in the same lens that I would be able to. And so one thing that I'm actually doing for my brand in 2025 is showing a lot more of my artwork in my socials. Really like bring that element through, because I really realized that I know that I'm that creative. I know that I've got those artistic gifts, but if I'm not posting that online, then the world doesn't see that point of difference. So yeah, that would probably be my differentiating factor.
So true. And I never thought about it in the fact that you really don't see the inherent value that someone can have, or just who somebody is, unless you're actually showing it on social media. Like you'll get, now that I've started posting more regularly in the last 12 months myself, I'll get random questions from mates being like, oh, people don't care about this and that. And it's like, it's different because you inherently know me. You've known me for the last 12 years. Like you're seeing what I do every day because you already know all of that. But the people that you're trying to connect with, your audience, the people who you're trying to help on a long term, they need to see that aspects of you. So
yeah,
really well put. I haven't heard anyone put it that way yet, so thank you for that, Em.
No worries. Glad that landed.
Biggest achievement so far, whether it's personal, financial, client, what you put it down to so far?
Oh, that's a great question, especially asking someone who struggles to celebrate themselves.
Trying to celebrate, yeah.
Classic overachiever, always focus on the next thing that feels like everything you've done isn't good enough. No, for me, I would say my biggest achievement so far is probably just getting myself to this point, where I am about to celebrate my 4th birthday in business. And so, between the ages of 22 and I'm now 26 going on 27 next year, I've been keeping my business alive, and I've been making an impact, and I've been expanding that more and more and more. And I've also been embracing the intense personal development journey that's been coming along with that. So yeah, not just to celebrate being, maintaining a 6-figure business each year, but just celebrating the fact that, most businesses don't make it past that first year. And here I am in my 4th year, and my vision's only getting bigger, and my hunger to really expand the impact and the legacy is only growing stronger with that too.
So good. And you do need the reflection sometimes. I think this time of year is perfect for it. I know we talked pre-show about just sitting down, enjoying the family time and switching off. So
yeah,
you get to give yourself a little pat on the back at the same time.
That's it.
What can you credit to, other than, of course, yourself and your own motivation, getting you to this point? Is there, one figure? Is there a quote? Is there is there a moment that's really kind of pulled you through this when I spring it to you?
Yeah, I love that. And The answer I have, I feel like I've been asked this question one time before, and when I answered it, I said, oh, it might sound a bit egotistical when I say this, but I hope that the audience can like really receive it in the way that I mean for it to be received. But when I think about like what's gotten me to this point, like what's been the thing that's kept me going and not quitting, it's really thinking about like that future version of myself and that potential that I know is within me that I can step into. And I find myself inspired by other people, but the most inspiring person to me is that version of myself at the end of my life who has done and accomplished absolutely everything that I see in the potential of what I can create, like the version of me who's standing on global stages, speaking to hundreds of thousands of people, like, and really inspiring on that scale. Like that is the person in my mind. That is the reason why I keep going, because I know if I stop, then I'll never become that person. But if I keep on going, then one day I'll step into that. And I think that for everyone, like that should really be the person that is the most inspiring for you as well. Like use people around you to get an idea and get inspiration for what your potential could be. But then once you actually like tap into your own potential and have that vision of what that can look like for you, I can guarantee that you will become the most inspiring person in your life when you're so connected to that future version of yourself.
I'm actually really glad you brought that perspective up, because like I said, it is really important to have other inspirational figures or leaders in your space to kind of get a gauge on where to go. But the other side, if you're hyper competitive like myself, it can also bring about, comparison is the thief of joy. So you can start comparing yourself to people that are already at their end life cycle, or, where they need to be. And it's like, hang on, why am I here and why are they there? Whereas if you pivot that and just stay in your own lane, focus on that goal, and like you said, that future end, like that is so empowering in itself. So really, really good, and probably a really good way to look at it if you are maybe hyper competitive like myself and you find yourself a bit unmotivated when it comes to that long-term strategy. So thank you.
No worries.
Where to next? We're 4 years in. You mentioned already maybe some subtle hints around speaking to hundreds of thousands of people in the future. What does the next maybe 12 months hold for Em in particular?
Yeah, the next 12 months, I really do feel that these are going to be the biggest 12 months for me in my journey. I feel like the last 4 years has been a massive journey of self-growth that is now setting me up, and I created this platform for me to now be able to run into 2025. And what that really looks like for me is pivoting away from, being perceived as just a business mentor and really becoming that expert at that one thing. So becoming that branding strategist that is like, such high demand within Australia, within the world. And then that, leading to me scaling a branding agency is something I really want to play with this year. And I'm really doubling down on as we step into January, as well as getting myself on more stages. So running more events of my own and speaking on other people's stages, because one thing I do love to do is talk. And I feel like a big piece of my mission is rooted in using my voice to inspire and impact other people as well. And so, yeah, one day I will be on those stages and stadiums, speaking in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And so I believe the next 12 months is going to be a big booster forward in that space as well.
So cool. And especially the way personal branding is heading into corporate space, into everywhere now. It's not just for your social media influencers anymore. It's so important in every aspect of life. So thank you for the business talk. As I promised, I like to do a little fast five fun finish. So just blow it out, whatever kind of comes to mind. Don't feel like you need to think too much. I know talking is your specialty, so hopefully it comes naturally here. But number one, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, to just trust yourself. And when you lean in and 100% trust yourself, you'll always be able to figure it out and get to where you want to get to.
Love that. Love that. Bit of a pivot. Teenage celebrity crush.
Oh, well, it has to be Zac Efron or Taylor Lautner.
So a bit of a Twilight girl. There you go.
It wasn't even Twilight. It was Shockingly in Lava Girl.
That's so
fell off him in Twilight. It was Shark
He was meant to be Shark Boy, not a werewolf. What's this about? No, it's so good. Favorite podcast you listen to outside of your own, of course?
Favorite podcasts I listen to. I haven't been listening to too many podcasts this year in particular, but if I can think of one off the top of my head, I would probably say maybe Dream Out Loud podcast. That's one of my mentors. Let's see his podcast, and he always brings really high value guests on there. So that one's a great listen.
First time being suggested. It's actually crazy. Every time I ask this question, I get a different podcast.
Yeah, love that.
It's impressive. I thought everyone would just always go Diary of a CEO, but it's not. It's like everyone goes wide variety. Love it. Music genre that gets you in the zone, whether it's work or at the gym.
Yeah. Well, if it's working, I just listen to creative frequencies because I'm like, I can't listen to lyrics while I'm working. But if it's in the car, it's like, you know, your classic white girl scream out loud, unwritten, you know, like all of those kinds of songs.
So good. So I'm curious on the creative frequency. Are we talking like lo-fi sort of thing, or are we talking like just white noise? What's the?
Yeah, it's kind of like lo-fi, but you know how there's like all different frequencies of sound. I always type in on Spotify creative frequency. I think it's like around the 500 hertz or something like that. And so it's not like one consistent noise. It's just like, yeah, the lo-fi music that's playing at that frequency, so I'm not distracted.
I love it. Yeah, I've had to go to lo-fi lyric free. Like I do lo-fi like, songs almost because I'm like, it's somehow I'm not distracted by it. So
yeah.
Totally relate. And most important question, tomato or barbecue sauce?
Oh, once upon a time, I would have purely said tomato sauce, but I'm kind of like, it depends on what it's on. That is my answer. If it's a sausage and bread, it's tomato sauce. If it's like a burger, it's barbecue sauce.
Barbecue. We're going dynamic. I love it. Thank you for that. This is your chance to kind of plug everything. Where can businesses connect with you? Where can they find out more information about you? And please plug away.
Yeah, I'm super easy to find. I am most active on Instagram. So that's at Empower with M. You can also listen to my podcast, the Empower with M podcast, which I started back at the beginning of my business journey. So you can literally listen to every milestone that I've gone through along the way. And if you are in the market for a brand strategist in 2025, then make sure you hit me up on Instagram, or I'm sure we can pop some sort of a link into the description of this and we can have a chat.
100%. I'll link it all in there for the readers of the article itself. So thank you so much for your time, and been a total pleasure. And yeah, really look forward to your 2025 journey.
Amazing. Thank you, Jack. I've had fun.